Good morning. Happy Wednesday. This is Babs Rose Ivy. You're listening to Love Babs Love Talk. I'm talking today, and I've got the lovely and beautiful Frida Grant, the president of Sigma Gamma Rho,
Hey.
and she's here to talk about the Youth Symposium. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me on this cold Wednesday morning.
Listen,
I really appreciate it.
I do what Pam Washington tells me to do.
Listen, we all do what Pamela Washington tells us to do.
When Palm says X, we say, we don't even say
all
Y.
Right.
We just like, O'Shea.
You get it done.
You just get it done.
Right.
And
right.
I'm not even a Sigma Gamma Rho. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
Hey, well, listen.
But if she called me, I just do what she tells me to do.
We know her reach is long, so we just do what she says. Hey, soror.
How are you, D9 sister?
I'm well. The sun is shining, so we're out here.
That's good. Is that headset good for you?
Yeah, it's a little. I can
loose?
hold on. So
okay.
It's a little loose.
Can you put it over the top of your head? Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Is that
good.
better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I want you to be comfortable.
I'm good.
So, all right. So, give me some background on D9. Give me some background on Sigma Gamma Rho. Those of us in D9, we already know, but for the listening audience.
But you know what? It's good sometimes for a refresher, right?
Yes.
So, history. Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, my beloved organization, was founded November 12th, 1922 at Butler University, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana, by 7 school teachers. So, which is amazing, right? So our pillars are really like focused on education, community involvement, wellness, and looking at all aspects of like community wellness. So not just from like a health initiative, but looking at like education, looking at financial wellness, financial literacy, looking at emotional well-being, mental health. Some fun facts, we're the only Divine Nine sorority that was not founded on a historically Black campus, which is great, right? So we're always like, like not only is this like women's history, it's Black history, it's a little bit of everything. So, and I think it's awesome just for me to kind of like think about what like the founders of Sigma Gamma Rho had to go through, because we know that Indiana and the Midwest is those are some interesting places, right?
Yeah, well, Malcolm X came from the Midwest, right? So there's a lot going on.
Right. So to have, 7 Black women at the time, just seeking out higher education in that space. And then to be like, you know what, like we see these issues in our community. How can we like address these things and really be purposeful about it? And then 96 years later, we're still here. These missions are still standing. And a lot of like the programs have just evolved. So it's amazing.
I mean, I take great honor knowing that these organizations, these decidedly Black organizations, are hundreds of years old.
Right. It's awesome. It's awesome. And sometimes I said, like, just think about like conversations and just like brainstorming things that we do with our friends, right? And like things that we want to do. And these folks had these visions like hundreds of something years ago with just like an idea with their friends. And now we're still doing that.
Yes.
Like that's
We're
amazing,
still carrying out these missions. We're still pledging our lives. We are still focused on community and education and family.
Right,
we are still carrying out this work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's great just to kind of see like how it's evolved over the years, because every organization, like as the times change, we kind of like change too. And we're like, oh, we need to address this too.
Yes.
But like the mission always stays the
same. The mission stays
and you can still see like what the work is doing in its history, like in the making.
And it is. And I tell you what else I love about it, that white folks don't know it.
Right.
I mean, they just don't know it. And
right.
so, when we talk about sorority and our clubs and all these kinds of things, they're just like, they know sororities and fraternities from maybe if they've gone to college.
Right.
And that's the beginning and the end.
Right. Which is so interesting, because I mean, for myself, I just think of like how much you learn and grow throughout your time in the organization. And to be in it for such a short amount of time, it's almost kind of short-sighted sometimes with some of these mainstream orgs, and you're missing out on a lot. But
Yes.
We're good. We'll keep it.
Yes. 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 So talk to me about this youth symposium.
Sure.
Because I asked you earlier how long y'all been doing this, because I didn't realize.
Right. So it's been going on for a while. So the youth symposium, you know, with most organizations, you have like your international programs, then you have like things that you do on a more local level. So the youth symposium is an international initiative, one of the international initiatives of the organization, and it's held on the first Saturday of March, and it's put on by every alumni chapter, which is dope, right? So first Saturday in March, every alumni chapter across the country of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated puts on this program. And what it is, it's just a day of educational and then also just kind of social based workshops for students. And we kind of have some leeway to kind of like pick our target ranges for students. So some folks kind of like focus on just high school age students, but we have like a theme. And this year's theme is Mission Possible, creating safe spaces for our youth.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Right. And so I'm the chair of the program and also like an academic at heart. So for our youth symposium, it's held conference style because I think it also provides our young folks with an opportunity to kind of get used to conferences, especially if you're going to be seeking higher education and things like that. So our youth symposium is held like conference style. We have programming for students elementary age all the way up through high school.
Wow.
What we do is we break it up. So the elementary students have like their specific programs, middle school and high school. Some are separate, some are together. They're hour-long programmings, and we cover topics from bullying to financial awareness. There's one specifically for the high school and middle school boys this year on like boundaries and safe spaces, because a lot of times like when we're talking about safe spaces, we don't necessarily look at the way that we can kind of create safe spaces for boys in our community, right? To kind of just be them and express themselves and learn about like boundaries and healthy relationships. So there's one for them. We have one particularly for middle and high school girls on self-esteem and what that looks like. We have some college tours happening. We have a keynote speaker at the end, and it's great because the parents can come also too. And we hold it at Southern. We've held it at Southern. I want to say this is the fourth or fifth year that it's been at Southern, which is amazing too, because it gives like students the opportunity to be on a college campus.
Yes.
You know, and
that's important.
Right. And get acclimated to what that looks like.
I like that.
Sitting in a classroom setting. The entire program, the entire day is free. You don't have to pay nothing. Just come with your baby.
And you feeding people?
Listen, they get breakfast and lunch. And some snacks. You know, so all we want to do is just kind of like, it's one of our bigger programs. It is like our biggest program for our chapter. And it's just an opportunity, again, for like the community to kind of come out, absolutely like learn more about the organization. We have like our 3 undergraduate chapters there. So we'll have undergraduates from Southern Connecticut State University, Quinnipiac, and the University of Bridgeport. So it gives, yeah, we're out here.
Wow.
So, you know, again, it gives students the opportunity to kind of like mix and mingle with their peers, mix and mingle with us, be around people just from even different neighborhoods, you know, and different cities and backgrounds. So last year we had about 70 students who were in attendance, about 70 to 80. And
that's a lot of kids.
Listen. And that was just the kids in workshops, because, you know, folks come with their little babies too, which is great because one of the things that we had implemented last year, we did have like a smaller room for some of the younger kids with like coloring and things like that. You know, kids need a break sometimes. But we were able to have students from Bridgeport, Stanford, New Haven, Hamden areas, Ansonia, Derby. So really like, you know, broadening our horizons and kind of like casting that net out a little bit further. So I can't stress it enough. Obviously, I'm biased because it's my chapter, my organization, and I'm the chairperson of the program. Right? So we have to like unpack our biases. But it is like such an amazing day and opportunity for everyone.
So what goes into the planning of this? When do y'all get started?
Well, yeah. Honestly, it's months and months of planning, and sometimes it almost looks like planning a year in advance. So, you know, after last year, you know, assess the program. It was amazing. It's like, okay, so what can we do now? Because the goal is always to do it bigger and better. So we get like a theme from the organization to kind of like give us like our key bullet points, but we also kind of have like the leeway to personalize it for like what's important to our community. So throughout like the planning stages, it's like looking to see like what's their need for. You know, I have a lot of sorors that are like educators, so it's like, what are the kids talking about right now? You know, like what do they need? What's interesting for them? And then just kind of feeling off of the climate, you know, because
well, you've got this bullying piece,
right,
which is a huge component.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And people are trying to figure out ways to address this bullying. And bullying is no longer just, you know, somebody saying, meet me on the playground, I'm going to kick your butt. It's on social media.
Right.
It's, you know, it's all these beefs that start on their Instagram accounts and wherever else kids, Snapchat and all these other places where kids hang. And it starts there, and then it escalates into like real violence.
Absolutely,
and so I know educators and folks who work in that arena, who work with kids, are trying to figure out ways to diffuse it.
Right. And you know, there's no like one size fits all way to address it, because there's so many factors to it. So by trade, I do domestic violence and sexual assault work. So
I used to do that work.
Hey,
I used to do that work. Oh my God. Almost 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Awesome.
30 years ago.
We're sisters in the struggle for real.
That's some hard work, girl.
It is. It's a labor of love, though.
It is. I remember when I first started, I used to run I used to coordinate the hotline, the sexual assault crisis hotline, and then run the support groups for survivors and their significant others. And then I would be the advocate. I'd go to court with them. I'd go meet them at the hospital.
Listen, I've done like court advocacy, family advocacy. Now I'm one of the counselors at Yale, so it's a little bit different than like being in the community, but the same stuff. And I do family violence groups for offenders, which is another.
Listen, I know, because my office is at 55th Street, and the family reentry folks run a group.
Right.
And it gets a little heated. I was like, all right.
Sometimes you're like,
okay. I hear y'all.
Right.
But it's necessary work.
It's so necessary. And I think like what it's been able to show me, especially like bringing it back to the bullying, is that a lot of these things, and like it's a breakdown in boundaries, and it starts so early on. Right?
Yes.
And so, you know, we can't wait until folks are in high school to say like, well, like this is wrong, don't do this, don't do that. And then you add that other component of being like Black folks, or like Black and brown folks and kids of color, right? Because the ramifications of a lot of these things are jail, you know?
And long-term jail.
Right.
Long-term.
And so the idea is that like, you don't wait till somebody's 16 or 17, start giving them these tools now, and start having these conversations now on like respecting boundaries, personal space, safe spaces, advocacy, who are like safe people that you can talk to if these things happen. So when I was like planning the program, like that was one of the things that stood out for me, right? So we're saying like safe spaces. All right, so we're really going to figure this out, and not being like, well, this is a teacher. You go to your teacher and you talk to this person. No, what does this really look like when we're saying like safe spaces in our communities? What does this really look like when somebody is bullying you? And then like, let's unpack this. Like, what are the things that kind of cause people to like be bullies, you know? And why is this happening? What are some of like the systematic and social things?
And we're seeing so many young children commit suicide,
right?
You know, or death by suicide,
right?
Because they're being bullied, and they didn't have any opportunity, or they thought they had no opportunity to tell somebody what was happening, or if they did tell people, actions weren't taken quick enough to sort of shut it down. Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes like some of the blame falls on us too, because I think like one of the setbacks of like getting older sometimes is that we invalidate some of like the experiences or just certain things that young folks are going to. So like you'll hear people like talking about like young folks being bullied, and we'll say, well, I was bullied when I was younger, and we used to say worse things to each other, and it's not a big deal. And even if it wasn't a big deal to you, doesn't mean that it's not hurtful to somebody else.
Right.
And like you mentioned,
that's
like,
a good point.
You know, like there's an additional thing like social media. We didn't have that that, you know,
thank the Lord.
Listen. So, you know, you could do something embarrassing, somebody can make fun of you, but it wasn't happening in like real time.
Right.
And it wasn't being spread all over again and happening over and over again. And like, we have to address that, you know? And I think a lot of our young people don't really have like the best communication skills, you know?
I think you're absolutely right. And the and the influx of girls fighting the way that they're fighting, and the way that they are trash talking, and the way that they are just so out of pocket, it gives I mean, we do something called the Delta Gyms and the Delta Academy.
They come to a youth symposium.
I know they do. And so we're always constantly trying to figure out ways how to sort of, give them the things that we think that they need to but the stuff that's about their everyday practical lives, because they're just with us for a short period of time, but then they got to go back into their communities and their environments. And, you want to send them with some tools, at least something to help them navigate these, these waters. So
absolutely. And then just, and it's with all kids, right? We can like tell them what's going to happen or like consequences of certain things, but they just don't believe you. Like when you're young, your brain, you just think that you have these superpowers and nothing is going to happen to you. So a lot of times, like, you get kids and they just get wrapped up into this mess. And by the time they realize it's a mess, it spreads so far, and like, it's great. Like just being able to give them the tools that they can kind of like see and be like, okay, like this is turning into, because
you're not going to be 16 forever.
No.
Someday you're going to be 25.
Right.
And you don't want to, look back at 25 saying, I spent so much time in jail, or I spent so much time,
or grow up and be like, wow, like I'm 25 and I'm just learning that you can't cuss everybody out every time they make you mad. You know what I mean? Like, you can't cuss your boss out.
Right. Nope. I didn't have a job.
Listen, you know, and like these are the things you have to say to young people, because they get so caught up in the idea of like, well, this person disrespected me.
Yes.
And it's like, well, okay.
Yes. I hear that all. I mean, I have kids and old. 17 to 22, 4 of them.
Wow.
And so I hear the disrespect conversations all the time. And it's stunning to me, because I'm thinking, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
right. Right. And then it's just like, well,
like you being told what to do. That's not disrespect.
No.
Like, you got this twisted.
It's a warped way of thinking. I don't understand it. But, you know, they're so big on like respect. And
yeah.
You can't disrespect them. And then it's just like, okay, that's fine. And if you feel disrespected, I absolutely want you to have the tools to be able to say, like, I didn't like the way you spoke to me. But you also need to learn how to disengage.
Yes.
And there's just something they just, I don't know.
Yes. No, listen, it's what I see it across the country, and people are having these conversations about how to sort of engage youth where they are.
Right.
Because I think no time in history have youth had so many opportunities and tools and things, but yet, you know, they are having challenges,
right,
you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just such a gap, I think, in what they need, you know, and some of it is them not knowing how to express what they need, I feel like. But then I also feel like for us, we don't necessarily engage young folks the way that we should, and not always coming from a position where it's like, I'm gonna fix you or tell you that you're doing something wrong. Just having conversations with them and seeing what's going on in their world, and seeing like the stress or just the ideas of like social media.
Because I think it's stressful to be a teenager.
It is.
I think it's very stressful. When I look at my own children, I think how stressful it is. So
yeah, you know, I have my daughter. I have 2 daughters, but my oldest is a
sophomore. Kids?
I do.
Like, you in here looking like you're 12.
That's good. Listen,
you know, black women.
Black don't crack. I'll take
black
it.
Black can be. You know, you could be like, we could be like Cicely Tyson. She could be 17 or she could be 95.
Right. I will take it. Every time somebody's like, "You look so young," that's fine.
I'm a full-grown woman.
Right. Listen, we're grown people bills. So.
I understand.
And so like, yeah, with my daughter, sometimes I have to kind of like take a step back, because, you know, she'll be like, I'm tired, or like, why are you tired? You ain't got no job, and
I know.
You know, what you do today. But it is stressful, and like that idea of like not knowing, and like all that teenage angst, and like,
oh girl,
it's hard.
It is.
And
I would be exhausted too if I had to deal with the way that they do. You know, it's this moment to moment life, and I was like, oh, I said, aren't you tired? I always talk to my daughter Margot. I was like, I was like, you know, she's and we talk, and she's telling me about all the drama, and I'm thinking to myself, all you have to do is just step back, like just remove yourself.
They don't know how. I mean, and like my daughter,
like,
her phone starts pinging at like 6:37 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's like notifications, and it's like streaks on Snapchat and whatever else they're talking to. And sometimes she's frustrated. And I'm like, you can turn your phone off.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I say to her. I was like, you can just turn it off.
And she's like, I can't.
I can't.
And I'm like, well, who do you work for? The government? Like,
I know.
Is it the money calling? Like, what's happening if you can't turn
Oh,
your
it's just
phone
like,
off?
they get in these. I was like, you can block people.
Right.
Oh no, I need them to see that I'm. I was like, why do you need that?
It's such a strange.
It is. It is a strange thing.
But these are the things that they're.
And these are the things they're dealing with, and these are their things. So you're doing this youth Sigma Gamma Rho is doing this youth symposium, 14 years in.
Yeah.
Which I had no idea it was 14 years.
Yep. So for like I said, so my chapter has been around. So I'm a member of the Iota Chi Sigma chapter, right? So we service Greater New Haven and Bridgeport. So it's our chapter. Our chapter's been around for 14 years in New Haven and Bridgeport, and it's the Youth Symposium is the program that we've been hosting for the past 14 years. And like I said, in the beginning, it was a little bit smaller, so we would host it at like different high schools. We've had it at Career in the past. Stetson Library has hosted us a few times, and it's just been in the past 5 years where we've moved it to Southern and just worked on like really like cultivating it and expanding it and making it a little bit bigger each year. And
it's coming up. It's
this Saturday. Saturday, March 10th. This Saturday. Registration is from 9 to 10 a.m. We will officially start the event at 10. So during that registration period, breakfast, get situated and get settled at Southern Connecticut State University, Engelman Hall, room C112.
Okay. And kids can come.
Kids, elementary school through high school. So bring your kids, bring your little cousins, bring everybody.
I sort of like this elementary school component because we always wait till kids get to high school before we start having these conversations and inviting them. And we seem to only want to invite high school kids. But it's where it begins at elementary school.
It does. And there's so much that you can kind of give them, even if it's just the idea of like sitting in a space and feeling comfortable with sharing ideas and taking in information and engaging with people who don't look like you. Like you listen to like teachers sometimes, they're like, well, my students don't sit still. I'm not a teacher, but sometimes it's just about like getting them engaged and like getting them comfortable and kind of like setting like, kind of like training that idea of like what like a classroom setting should look like, and why not do it again within our communities, So last year with the elementary students, we did a lot of stuff on like being able how to be a good friend. We had a CPR and first aid demonstration for them. So again, like obviously like age appropriate conversations, but inviting them there too. So when you're in middle school and when you're in high school and the idea of college comes up, even if it's just that one time and you're like, hey, I did go to a college before, I know what Southern looks like, it makes them comfortable and it doesn't have these things seeming like just foreign.
Yes. That's real. That's real. So let me switch gears a little bit. Tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? And where did you go to school?
I am from New Haven.
Are you, Frida?
I am.
What neighborhood you from, girl? Because
I mean, so I grew up in the East Rock area.
Okay.
So I split my time in the East Rock area and then out by Lighthouse over there.
East Shore.
Yes. So I am New Haven through and through. I went to Cross.
Okay.
High school, so very New Haven.
All right. Go. They just won the basketball team.
Good. Shout out to them. And then for undergrad and grad, I went to Southern.
Really. So that is your alma mater. That's your school.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's a good connection.
It is. And I think like, again, like what better way to kind of like give back, right? Giving back to like your campus, giving back to your community and just being there. I think like a lot of times people have this idea like, oh, like we go to school, we get these degrees and then you leave your communities or you kind of become out of touch. And it's like, well, no, there's a lot of us who are like here, who are from these spaces, who are actively like working and trying to like make these spaces better because I mean I gotta live here.
And honestly, they need to see some more Black people over at the school.
Right. Listen, we need to see more Black folks throughout this city, right? Because we know that we're here, but then it's about like us really being here.
I'm looking forward to this event. And so So it's a full day.
A full day. So the event runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So like I said, so in the morning time, so from that 9 to 10 is registration. Just come in, open registration, breakfast, lunch is provided. We'll we have three workshops. So we have like 3 workshop sessions, and within those sessions are the three individual workshops for our target populations. We have lunch. Music is going to be provided by DJ Prodigy, so we got some music.
So you are really giving these kids something that they could.
Day.
It's like a day party.
Right, listen. I've been known to like a day party. We all like a day party. But yeah, they have like a DJ. We have raffle prizes.
Wow.
So it's really just a full day of us being able to kind of give back to the community again. Breakfast and lunch is provided. A lot of times parents will kind of stick around for a little bit, but they can also, you know, sign their kid in. Obviously, like there's waivers and forms. Go do what you need to do. Go have lunch and come back. The Delta gyms always support us, which is great. Like they've been supporting us in this symposium for years. We get a lot of community support. Again, we just want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody, and we're tapping into the larger Greater New Haven and Greater Bridgeport community. So just come out.
That's good.
And you get to talk to me all day. So what
that in and of itself is the greatest pleasure, I think.
Right.
I think. All right, so the day starts. It's Saturday, and then the next day after, what do? You start to regroup and say, okay, this is what we did.
Yeah, I mean, with everything, you know, well, Sunday I'm going to go to sleep. That's what I'm going to do.
I know, because you've been planning this for quite some time.
Right. And then, so yeah, the next day is, what can we do next? You know, getting feedback. It's great because the students have like assessment forms that they fill out. It's not, you know, it's not officially called like surveys. That's better. So like the students are given like a survey to kind of like fill out how they thought the day went. Parents and guests are able to fill out a survey too. You know, we take that, compile the data. I'm again like an academic person, so like data and stats I love those. And then we go from the next thing, you know.
So how do you recruit these kids? How do you invite them?
Word of mouth, and honestly, like our community collaboration. So we have a great relationship with Phenomenal I Am, which is the girls mentoring group out in New Haven. And their director has been amazing. So they're actually one of our partners with the event. So we're able to like funnel students out that way. We have a lot of like great connections with some of the high schools and people who are working in the community. And I have to say, like, my sorors are amazing because they will shop this program to everybody, you know, so just like their friends.
Well, if you got Palm Washington,
listen, it's going to get done.
Really?
You know, last year we had a friend, and this person's an alum of Southern as well. And she's like, listen, I'm in Stanford, but I work with a group of girls. I will drive them up to this program. And it's great. Like just that idea of like just grassroots community building where people are like, you know what, if I got to put 6 or 7 kids in my car and drive them up the road to this program, I'm going to do it. So we've just been able to kind of funnel kids from that way.
And it's free.
And then also, again, like shout out to the D9 because a lot of, you know, organizations have their auxiliary groups for their kids, and we always get them coming in that way as well.
Well, because we understand the value of community and commitment and connection. And so it just makes sense.
Absolutely.
Particularly, we're all trying to, you know, put kids in front of things that will give them tools to succeed, right? And so, listen, y'all gonna go over here to this. You're gonna go over here to that.
You're
gonna get some of this, and you know, they're going to get something out of it. You know, they're going to get something out of it. And take it with them for their whole lives. They don't know that until they walk out the door. You know, they don't know until the end. So
because I say to my daughter sometimes when I'm talking to her and I can see her eyes glazing over.
And how old is she?
My oldest is 15.
And
then I have
that's dead age right there.
That glaze over. And I'm like, listen, even if you're not listening to me and you're tuning me out, as long as you walk out of here with something that mommy said, we'll take it, you know? And if that light bulb goes off like next week, like, you know what? She was right. I'm cool with it. And like, that's the idea with programs like this, right?
Yes.
Even if it's just one gym or something that they walk away from, then we did our job.
Yeah.
And then we try again next year.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about some of the stuff that happens with the boys.
Yeah. So this is the year, we've always incorporated boys into our programming. And a lot of times, like, they're just in the program, you know, in the workshops with like mixed gender. So this is the first year that we're going to split them up.
Okay.
and have some conversations with them again about like boundaries.
Now, do you have men leading these conversations, or
We
y'all are
do.
leading?
No,
Okay.
we do.
Because I think that's important too. But
It is.
sometimes you can't have that, and sometimes you can't
Right.
have it, and so you have to step into that role.
Right, right. I mean, and it's funny that you mentioned that because we've again had like we're just blessed in a lot of ways, but we have Ty Richardson who comes in and he's gonna be our keynote this year. He has he's from Richardson Training and Consulting,
Mm-hmm.
and he does an amazing keynote. And it started because like he was always doing like the workshops, and the workshops were like mixed gendered, and like these workshops became like standing room only, you know. And
Whoa.
it's great for the girls because, you know, a lot of times like, you know, it's like us always talking, right? It's always like a woman that's talking and providing them with this information. So like, what better way to have like a man who's coming and giving you like the same script that we're giving you. And it's also great for these young men too to kind of like see somebody who's from your community, who's from your area, and it's like, listen, these are the things that you can do. And it's coming from a place of love and not always like punitive, because I think a lot of times like when we're talking to our kids, it's always punitive based.
Yep.
Do this or you're gonna go to jail, you know. So it's good. And with like this year, with being able to kind of like split them and have that conversation, the goal is just to really just provide like a safe space for boys to really express these feelings, express some of their concerns, because a lot goes into like young girls with self-esteem and young girls with like feeling safe and being able to like feel vulnerable like amongst their peers in their community. But vulnerability is just not something that we talk about with Black men and boys at all, you know. So again, we can't wait until
they get in some domestic violence program because they serving some time.
Right.
We have to get ahead of that.
Or he's 30 years old in a relationship with somebody and doesn't have any interpersonal skills. So if he can sit back and be like, you know, remember when I went to that SG Row Youth Symposium and they told me to use my words, right? Like, I don't know. But we want to be able to
but that's where it starts. That's a good foundation. Use your words. I remember saying that to my kids. Okay, use your words. Because they would nod their head and you know. I was like, and then I was like, no. Use your words.
Right. You have to talk about it. You have to feel comfortable. But a lot of times they're just not given that space to do that. So like that's the goal from that. And then because my committee, where the Youth Symposium committee is a committee of 3, which is great because we get a lot done, just the 3 of us. And when we were brainstorming about like workshops for the boys and what we wanted to do, one of the things one of my co-chairs was saying, like, you know, she wanted to kind of like steer away from conversations that had to do with like athletics or things like that, because like, you know, it's really stereotypical, especially for like inner city boys and boys of color. You know, everyone always talks to them about sports and everybody always talks to them about academics and things like that. Like, let's have some real conversations with them about something different and address like another aspect of their lives. And not all of them may even want to be involved in sports, but at some point, at some junction in your life,
they're going to be in a relationship.
You're going to need to talk to somebody.
You're going to have to talk to somebody, whether it's your boss or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it is.
Mama.
Or
like,
your mama.
Right, you got to talk to somebody, so why not?
I think that is huge. And I don't see too many opportunities where boys get that kind of focus.
Absolutely.
You know, where it is about, you know, their communication engagement.
Right.
And what's their commitment to that.
Right. And I mean, and you see it, you know, like when I do my groups with the guys sometimes, like just even simple questions like, well, what do you like? Or what makes you upset? They've never been asked those questions. So again, now you have like a room full of men who don't necessarily know how to express those feelings, you know?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at, you know, like a lot of the issues that plague our community, like violence and things like that, it's like we need to get to a point where we're really addressing it and not just putting like a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches, right? Because we know it's just going to keep busting open, right? So we need to kind of do something a little bit differently. And I think having these conversations is the first step. And then the idea is like, you know, you start small and you kind of move outward and figure something else out.
You know, the other night I was at the screening for Stephen Dees' film I Am Shakespeare about Henry Green. I don't know if you've ever seen that film.
No,
but
I worked with Henry, so I'm very familiar with him. Yeah.
And it's such a powerful film, and he talks about how he had nowhere to take his feelings. Like when stuff was jumping off,
right?
He had no place. And even though he had a good relationship with his parents, your parents' thing is, okay, just go to school, get good grades, and stay out of trouble.
Right.
Like, because we got to keep the lights on. We got to keep the roof over our heads. We got to do it. So there wasn't much opportunity to sort of say, whatever. You know, I feel this, or I feel like every day I walk out of here, I'm in a war zone, or and I was, you know, and it made me think about the plight of young African American males in our communities with no opportunity to sort of talk.
Right, absolutely.
Seriously, to just talk and without judgment.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I thought, wow. So I think you all are onto something. I'd be anxious to hear the feedback, and the fact that you're separating them out, I think is cool, because I think boys and girls in the same room together, when real conversations have to happen, it'll take so much time to sort of break down. You know, that barrier of
absolutely.
I'm trying to look a certain way for each other.
Yep.
And you put them all, you separate them, and some real talk can happen.
Right. Because it starts to become performative, you know? And you kind of like, you just kind of see it, and everybody is doing this thing, and nobody's really having a conversation because they're so worried about what the other person is going to do, you know? And so it's great to kind of just like break that down and be able to be like, listen, y'all amongst your peers, you don't need to.
These are boys, you know, and even if they ain't your boys, y'all in here together, and you know,
and like it, and you know, like a lot of times in like that group setting, it starts off like performative, even like when they're separated by gender, but then after a while, it's just like a light switch.
It becomes real,
you know, and they're like, you know what, let me just start, and it just flows out, and they just have this conversation. Because even for like the girls, you know, a lot of times like when we're looking at like programming, it's based on like what we think, you know, and it's kind of like based around like these ideas of like respectability, you know. So we put a lot into like talking about like how they dress, how they interact in public, and all these things. And but very rarely do we talk about just like the social and emotional stuff, right? And these kids are dealing with a lot, and we need to like unpack that. And it's funny to me because, you know, like in a community doing like community-based work or just service-based work, we know that like if your just like your basic needs aren't met, then you just are not going to be able to take in other information. And it's the same way, right? So like we want like these young folks to like understand that education is important. We want these young folks to use their resources and make good choices. But you know what? They're not even going to be in a space to do that mentally if they're dealing with stress that comes from like bullying, or maybe like being in a home where there's unhealthy relationships, or people are broke, you know, like they're just not going to be able to do that. So let's meet your basic needs first, and then we can teach you how to tie a tie. Y'all can go learn how to tie a tie, and we'll teach you how to cross your legs on your dresses, because that always comes up at some point. We'll get to that later, right? Let's do what's important first.
See, I like this so much, because I think that's the missing component when we start talking about young people. Like, you know, we want to get down the road so fast with them, but they need communication skills and support.
Absolutely.
And they need to be able to sort of share. And I don't think we make. I know we don't make safe spaces for adults to share in meaningful ways unless they go to some therapeutic setting.
Right.
You know, so imagine young people without the wherewithal to sort of pull the, you know, I got friends. Do you know what I mean? Like I got a squad, but young kids, young people, they don't get that. You know, they don't get that. Sometimes the people around you are the most harmful.
Listen, right. I mean, and I think like as a community, we need to do a little bit better with just being transparent with each other, you know, because a lot of times we're all walking around like with these stresses, and we're walking around like with like trauma associated with these negative experiences or just life. And, you know, there's like that thought that like, it's all right, I got to worry about this and I have to worry about that. So we never like engage these conversations with each other, you know? So it's kind of silly to think that like, is that like, if as grown folks, we're not having these conversations, what in the world makes you think that like
that's
this 15-year-old is going to be able to have the tools to do it, because we can't do it.
We can't do it.
So, you know, it's about us like being transparent to them too. And like, you know, we're not perfect. I definitely don't know. I don't have all the answers, you know, and it just kind of like bridges that gap and opens up like those relationships and like relationship building with like generational stuff, because that's important too.
Listen, this has been a great conversation.
It has.
I've
I really
enjoyed you.
Speaking
You have to
with
come back.
Listen, I sure will.
I like talking to you.
Thank
you're
you.
like, you have a lot of energy. So shout out the symposium one more time so people can hear it again.
I will. So the Iota Chi, the incomparable Iota Chi Sigma chapter, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, right? So we are hosting our annual youth symposium this Saturday, March 9th at Southern Connecticut State University. It will be in Engelman Hall, room C112. Registration starts at 9. It's open for everyone, right? Everyone. Students elementary to high school. There's no cap on how many kids you can bring. Breakfast and lunch is provided. It's free and it's open to the public. And then while I'm here, I just wanted to also kind of like give y'all a save the date and shout out our upcoming program.
Yay! Do it.
These SGROs are out here working, right?
Girl, you know, ain't no workers like D9 workers.
Right. This is a job. I tell people all the time, like, SGRO is my other job. But on March 19th, we're actually hosting a documentary screening of the Sandra Bland documentary, Say Her Name. And Sandra Bland obviously is a soror of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority.
Yes.
Who, lost her life to police sanctioned violence. So this event is going to be held at Quinnipiac University. We have some moderators. I know Paul Bass from The Independent is one of the moderators. And we're also blessed to have Sora Bland's sister, Sharon Cooper, who is also a member of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. So she'll be at the event too. She's going to be hosting a keynote after the documentary screening and facilitating a Q&A. So that flyer will be out soon. So mark your calendars, March 19th.
Send it to me so I can put it in the inner city.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So because the symposium is in the inner city too.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. So we just want, again, trying to find ways to kind of address like issues that are directly impacting our community and to engage all aspects of our community. So come out. But this Saturday, March 9th, Youth Symposium, Southern, 9 a.m., Engelman Hall, C112, and you get to talk to me all day and see my sorors. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, Frida, I enjoyed you. Pam, thank you for coordinating this effort.
Soror.
I so enjoyed that. And thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You
and
too.
I look forward to having you back on.
Absolutely. Stay warm. It's cold out there.
Girl, I got the fur today.
Thank
you, Harry.
Thank you.